You've done everything right. You meditated. You prayed. You read the books. You listened to the teachers. You watched the videos. You spent money on courses, workshops, retreats, and healing practices. You committed yourself to growth. You became more conscious, more aware, more spiritual. And yet, when the room gets quiet, when the noise disappears, when the distractions fade, that feeling returns. That strange emptiness, that silent ache, that hollow space inside you that no amount of knowledge seems able to reach. And maybe what confuses you most is this. You expected the spiritual path to make that feeling disappear. Instead, sometimes it feels stronger than ever. Why? Why does the emptiness remain even after all the work? Why do some people spend years healing, growing, meditating, awakening, only to discover that the void is still there waiting for them? And what if the answer is not what you think? What if the very thing you've been using to heal is the thing keeping you trapped? Because there's a possibility most spiritual teachings never discuss. A possibility that is uncomfortable. A possibility that changes everything. The possibility that your emptiness is not a sign of failure. The possibility that your emptiness is not proof that something is wrong with you. The possibility that the emptiness itself is trying to guide you somewhere. But before we understand that, we have to understand the journey that brought you here. Because if you're listening to this right now, chances are you've been searching for a long time, maybe for years, maybe for decades. You know what it's like to feel that spark of hope when you discover a new teacher, a new philosophy, a new practice, a new method that promises transformation. For a moment, everything feels different. You think, this is it. This is what I've been missing. This is finally going to change everything. And for a while, it does. You feel lighter, more connected, more alive, more hopeful. But then something happens. The feeling fades. Life returns. The silence returns. And the emptiness returns with it. So you search again. Another book, another retreat, another technique, another breakthrough, another promise. And without realizing it, the search itself becomes your life. Years pass this way, always moving, always learning, always improving, always becoming, but never arriving. And there is a particular loneliness hidden inside this experience. A loneliness very few people understand, because this is not the loneliness of having no direction. This is the loneliness of having tried every direction. The loneliness of doing everything you're supposed to do and still feeling incomplete. The loneliness of watching other people talk about peace while secretly wondering why peace keeps slipping through your fingers. The loneliness of smiling on the outside while carrying unanswered questions on the inside. Questions you rarely speak aloud. Questions like, what if none of this works? What if I'm doing something wrong? What if everyone else is progressing except me? What if I'm broken? Many spiritual seekers carry this fear in silence, not because they want to, but because they feel ashamed of it. After all, if you spent years on the path, shouldn't you be happier by now? Shouldn't you be more fulfilled, more whole, more at peace? Yet the harder you try to become whole, the more distant wholeness seems. And eventually another feeling appears. Exhaustion, not physical exhaustion, soul exhaustion. The exhaustion of constantly trying to improve yourself. The exhaustion of monitoring your thoughts. The exhaustion of fixing your emotions. The exhaustion of chasing the next version of who you're supposed to become. Because somewhere along the way, the search stopped feeling like freedom and started feeling like pressure. Pressure to heal. Pressure to awaken. Pressure to transcend. Pressure to become someone better than the person you are right now. And perhaps this is the moment where everything begins to change. Because what if the emptiness isn't proof that you failed? What if it's not evidence that you're broken? What if it's not a sign that you need another method? What if it's trying to tell you something you've been avoiding for years? Something deeper than self-improvement. Something deeper than spirituality. Something deeper than healing itself. Maybe the question isn't, how do I get rid of this emptiness? Maybe the real question is, what is this emptiness trying to show me? Because sometimes the greatest transformation begins not when we find another answer, but when we finally stop running from the question. And that is where our journey begins. If emptiness were simply the absence of something, The solution would be easy. You would find what is missing, add it to your life, and feel complete. But that isn't what happens. Many people acquire everything they thought they needed: knowledge, wisdom, spiritual practices, community, purpose, and still find themselves staring into the same inner void. Why? Because the emptiness is often not created by what is absent. It is created by what has been avoided. And there are 3 hidden traps that keep this cycle alive. 3 traps that look like growth. 3 traps that often feel spiritual. 3 traps that can quietly keep a person searching for decades. The first is called spiritual bypass. The second is the addiction to striving. And the third is shadow rejection. Let's begin with the first, because it is the most deceptive and perhaps the most common. Trap number 1, spiritual bypass. At first glance, spiritual bypass looks like wisdom. It sounds wise. It sounds peaceful. It sounds evolved. But beneath the surface, something very different is happening. Spiritual bypass occurs when spiritual ideas are used to avoid emotional reality, not to transform pain, not to understand pain, but to escape pain. Imagine someone who has never allowed themselves to fully grieve. Someone carrying years of disappointment, years of sadness, years of anger. Instead of feeling these emotions, they immediately translate them into spiritual language. Everything happens for a reason. It's all part of the journey. I choose love over anger. I forgive and let go. These statements can be true, but they can also become hiding places. Because truth spoken too early becomes avoidance. And avoidance disguised as wisdom is still avoidance. Consider grief. Real grief is messy. It doesn't follow spiritual rules. It doesn't care about positive thinking. It doesn't disappear because you've learned a profound teaching. Grief demands to be felt. It asks for tears, silence, surrender. But many seekers never allow themselves this experience. Instead, they rush to transcend it, to rise above it, to become bigger than it. And so the grief remains, not healed, not transformed, only hidden, waiting. The same is true for anger. Many people are terrified of anger, especially spiritual people. They have been taught that anger is low vibration, unconscious, negative, something to eliminate. But healthy anger has a purpose. Healthy anger protects boundaries. Healthy anger reveals truth. Healthy anger exposes violations. When anger is rejected, it doesn't disappear. It simply moves underground. And once underground, it begins influencing life from the shadows. This is why some people meditate for years and still feel stuck. Because meditation cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. Presence is not escape. Presence is contact. And if your practice helps you avoid reality rather than encounter it, the emptiness grows stronger. Because every avoided feeling becomes another part of yourself left behind. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He observed that what remains unconscious continues directing a person's life without their awareness. The feelings you refuse to meet do not vanish. They wait, patiently, quietly, until one day they emerge as anxiety, depression, exhaustion, meaninglessness, or emptiness. And perhaps the most dangerous part of spiritual bypass is that it often feels good. It feels like progress. It feels like maturity. It feels like enlightenment. But peace built on avoidance is not peace. It is distance. And distance from yourself always creates emptiness. Now, let's move to the second trap. A trap even more subtle. Because unlike bypassing, this one is often praised by society. Trap number 2. The addiction to striving. There is something strange about the modern spiritual seeker. Many spend years pursuing freedom, yet somehow become imprisoned by the pursuit itself. At some point, growth stops being a tool and becomes an identity, the identity of the seeker. The seeker is always becoming, always improving, always learning, always preparing for the future version of themselves. And while growth can be beautiful, there is a hidden danger. Because every pursuit contains an assumption. The assumption that something is missing right now. Every new course whispers the same message. Not yet. Every new retreat whispers the same message. Not yet. Every new method whispers the same message. Not yet. You are not there. You are not complete. You still need more. And eventually, without realizing it, a person becomes addicted to striving, not because they love growth, but because they fear acceptance. Think about that carefully. What if the reason you keep searching is not because you're lost? What if it's because finding yourself would end the search? What if becoming whole would destroy the identity you've spent years building? This possibility terrifies many people because striving creates purpose. Striving creates momentum. Striving creates a future. But acceptance demands something much harder. Acceptance demands presence. And presence asks a frightening question. Who are you if there is nothing left to fix? Who are you if there is nowhere left to arrive? Who are you if this moment is already enough? Many seekers cannot answer that question because they have spent so long becoming that they no longer know how to be. And this creates a painful paradox. The more desperately they pursue wholeness, the more they reinforce a belief that they are incomplete. The search itself becomes the obstacle. And so the emptiness remains, not because growth failed, but because growth became another form of self-rejection, a constant message sent inward. You are not enough. Not yet, not yet, not yet. And eventually, the soul grows tired. Tired of becoming. Tired of fixing. Tired of striving. Tired of chasing itself. Which brings us to the third trap. The deepest trap of all. Trap number 3. Shadow rejection. Most people want light. Very few people want wholeness. Because wholeness requires darkness too. This was one of Jung's most important discoveries. Every human being carries parts of themselves they do not want to see. Traits, impulses, emotions, desires, memories. These rejected aspects form what Jung called the shadow. The shadow is not evil. The shadow is simply everything you decided was unacceptable. Your anger, your selfishness, your envy, your neediness, your vulnerability, your fear, the pieces of yourself you buried in order to become lovable, acceptable, spiritual, good. But here's the problem. Nothing buried stays buried forever. The shadow doesn't disappear. It waits. And while it waits, it influences your life from behind the curtain. The person who rejects anger becomes passive. The person who rejects selfishness loses boundaries. The person who rejects power becomes afraid of their own strength. The person who rejects desire becomes disconnected from vitality. Every rejected part takes life energy with it. And over time, this creates a profound sense of inner emptiness, not because something is missing, but because parts of you have been abandoned. Imagine trying to live while carrying only half your soul. Imagine trying to feel alive while rejecting half your humanity. This is the cost of shadow rejection. And this is why so many spiritual seekers feel exhausted. They are constantly maintaining an image, constantly performing goodness, constantly managing appearances, constantly trying to remain the person they think they should be. And all that effort creates distance. Distance from truth, distance from authenticity, distance from life itself. Jung expressed it in a way that still echoes today. What you resist persists. What you integrate transforms. Read that again. What you resist persists. What you integrate transforms. The emptiness you feel may not be asking for more light. It may be asking for reunion. Reunion with the forgotten parts of yourself. The abandoned parts. The feared parts. The human parts. Because the parts you hate may be carrying the life you need. And once you understand that, everything begins to change. Understanding an idea is one thing. Living it is another, because concepts can feel distant, safe, abstract, but stories have a way of bypassing the intellect and reaching somewhere deeper. So let me tell you about someone we'll call Sarah. Not because her story is unusual, but because it is, and it isn't. The details are different. The names are different. The circumstances are different. Yet the emotional experience is shared by countless people walking a spiritual path. Sarah was 35 years old, successful, intelligent, respected, the kind of person others admired, the kind of person who seemed calm no matter what happened. Friends described her as grounded, wise, centered. She was the person people called when their lives were falling apart. And on the surface, they were right. Sarah had spent more than a decade working on herself. 10 years of meditation, books stacked beside her bed, retreats in different countries, breath work, journaling, energy healing, plant medicine ceremonies, therapy, workshops, podcasts, courses. If there was a path, she had explored it. If there was a teacher, she had probably listened. If there was a method, she had likely tried it. And despite all of that, she felt empty. Not every day, not every hour, but often enough that she couldn't ignore it. It would arrive unexpectedly, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, driving home from work, sitting alone after dinner, lying awake at night, a feeling difficult to describe. Not sadness, not depression, not anxiety, just an absence, a strange hollowness, as if life were happening around her but not quite reaching her. And what made it worse was that she couldn't explain it. How could someone who had done so much inner work still feel this way? How could someone who understood so many spiritual teachings still feel disconnected from herself? For years, Sarah treated the emptiness like a problem to solve. Whenever it appeared, she searched for answers, another retreat, another book, another breakthrough, another teacher. And every time, the same cycle repeated. Hope, relief, excitement, then eventually, the return of the void. At first, she believed she simply hadn't found the right method yet. Then she believed she wasn't practicing hard enough. Then she believed she still had more healing to do. But eventually a different question began emerging. A question she had spent years avoiding. What if the problem wasn't a lack of healing? What if the problem was the way she had been healing? That question followed her for months. Quietly, patiently, waiting. Then one afternoon, something happened. Not during meditation, not a retreat, not during a ceremony, not in a moment of spiritual transcendence. It happened in a therapist's office, and it began with a simple question. The therapist asked, "When was the last time you allowed yourself to feel angry?" Sarah laughed, not because the question was funny, because it seemed irrelevant. Anger wasn't her issue. She was an angry person. At least that was the story she had always told herself. The therapist asked again, "When was the last time you truly felt angry?" Sarah searched her memory. Nothing came, not because she had no anger, but because she had trained herself not to recognize it. For years, every time anger appeared, she reframed it. She spiritualized it. She explained it away. She forgave too quickly. She understood too quickly. She transcended too quickly. And in doing so, she never actually felt it. The therapist remained silent, then asked another question. What would happen if you stopped being understanding for a moment? The question landed somewhere deep, because suddenly Sarah realized something she had never seen before. Her entire identity was built around being the calm one, the mature one, the conscious one, the spiritually evolved one. She knew how to understand everyone else's pain, but she didn't know how to honor her own. And beneath that realization was something even more painful. Grief, an ocean of grief. Grief she had carried since childhood. Grief she had spent years trying to meditate beyond. Grief connected to a relationship she rarely talked about. Her mother. Sarah's mother wasn't cruel. She wasn't abusive. She wasn't absent, which made the wound harder to identify. Because the deepest wounds are not always created by what happened. Sometimes they are created by what never happened. Sarah spent her childhood waiting for something, a sentence, a moment, a feeling. She wanted her mother to look at her and say, "I'm proud of you." Not because she achieved something, not because she performed well, not because she succeeded, just because she existed. But that moment never truly came. And so Sarah learned something very early. If love wasn't guaranteed, it had to be earned. She became successful, responsible, helpful, perfect, not consciously, but psychologically. A child trying to secure the approval she never fully received. Years later, the pattern remained. Only now it wore spiritual clothing. Instead of earning approval through achievement, she earned it through goodness, through wisdom, through self-awareness, through spirituality. The game had changed, but the wound remained. And for the first time, Sarah saw it clearly. The emptiness wasn't random. The emptiness wasn't meaningless. The emptiness wasn't proof she was broken. The emptiness was emotional distance between who she truly was and who she had spent her life pretending to be. And once she saw that truth, everything began to unravel, not beautifully, not peacefully, not spiritually, painfully. She cried more in the following months than she had in the previous 10 years, not because she was getting worse, because she was finally becoming honest. She allowed herself to feel anger, to feel disappointment, to feel resentment, to feel grief, emotions she had spent years trying to transcend. And something surprising happened. The more she allowed these feelings, the less empty she felt, because energy that had been frozen began moving again. Life that had been trapped began returning. For the first time, Sarah wasn't trying to become enlightened. She wasn't trying to heal faster. She wasn't trying to fix herself. She was simply telling the truth about her pain, the truth about her fear, the truth about her loneliness, the truth about her humanity. And little by little, the emptiness changed. It didn't disappear overnight. It transformed. What once felt like a black hole began feeling like a doorway, a space, a silence, a threshold, not something consuming her, something inviting her into a deeper relationship with herself. Years later, when Sarah reflected on her journey, she realized something that would have sounded impossible to her younger self. The spiritual practices had never been the problem. Meditation wasn't the problem. Healing wasn't the problem. Growth wasn't the problem. The problem was that she had been using all of them to avoid the one thing that actually needed her attention, her truth. And perhaps that is the lesson hidden inside her story. Not that spirituality is wrong, but that spirituality cannot replace honesty. No practice can feel your grief for you. No teacher can face your shadow for you. No method can tell the truth on your behalf. Eventually, every path leads back to the same place. Back to yourself. Back to the parts you abandoned. Back to the feelings you avoided. Back to the humanity you tried to transcend. And when that reunion begins, the emptiness reveals its secret. It was never a hole. It was a doorway. After hearing Sarah's story, it becomes tempting to believe that emptiness is simply unresolved pain. And sometimes it is, but not always, because there's a deeper mystery hidden inside this experience. A mystery that has been explored by philosophers, mystics, psychologists, and seekers for thousands of years. What if emptiness is not merely a symptom? What if it is also a stage, a passage, a threshold, a place you must move through before something new can emerge? Most people assume emptiness means something is wrong, that if they feel hollow, disconnected, uncertain, then they must be failing. But life is rarely that simple. Consider nature. A forest loses its leaves before spring. A snake sheds its skin before it grows. A seed disappears into darkness before it becomes a tree. Transformation almost always begins with a form of loss. And yet, when it happens to us, we panic. We assume something has gone wrong. We assume we are broken. We assume we need fixing. But perhaps what we are experiencing is not destruction. Perhaps it is transition. There are, in a sense, two kinds of emptiness. The first is dead emptiness. The second is sacred emptiness. And confusing one for the other causes enormous suffering. Dead emptiness comes from disconnection. It comes from abandoning yourself, ignoring yourself, suppressing yourself, living according to expectations rather than truth. This form of emptiness feels lifeless because it is lifeless. It is created by distance. Distance from your emotions, distance from your needs, distance from your authentic self. This is the emptiness many people experience after years of self-betrayal. The emptiness of a life performed rather than lived. But sacred emptiness is different. Sacred emptiness appears when an old identity begins to dissolve, when the person you've been can no longer continue, yet the person you're becoming has not fully emerged. This space feels terrifying because the mind hates uncertainty. The mind wants definitions, labels, certainty, direction. The mind wants to know who you are, what comes next, where this is going. But transformation rarely provides those answers immediately. Instead, it creates space, and that space often feels empty. Imagine spending 20 years building an identity, an image, a story about yourself. Then one day realizing the story is incomplete or false, or too small. What happens next? The old identity begins to collapse, but the new one doesn't appear overnight. There's an in-between state, a psychological wilderness, and that wilderness is often experienced as emptiness. This is why awakening can feel so confusing. People expect awakening to feel like expansion, bliss, certainty, peace, and sometimes it does. But often it feels like disorientation, loss, confusion, the collapse of familiar structures. Because awakening is not merely the discovery of truth, it is also the death of illusion, and every death leaves space behind. The caterpillar would call the cocoon a crisis. Think about that. From the caterpillar's perspective, everything is ending. Its identity is disappearing. Its body is dissolving. Its world is collapsing. Nothing feels safe. Nothing feels familiar. Nothing makes sense. Yet from a larger perspective, transformation is unfolding. The crisis is a process. The dissolution is a path. The uncertainty is necessary. Many spiritual seekers misunderstand this completely. They encounter the emptiness of transition and mistake it for failure, so they rush to escape it. They search for another teaching, another answer, another distraction, anything to avoid sitting in the unknown. But the unknown is precisely where transformation occurs. Not because the unknown is comfortable, because it is creative. Everything new emerges from a space that once appeared empty. A blank canvas, an unwritten page, a silent room, a dark womb. Life begins in darkness. Growth begins in uncertainty. Meaning often emerges from periods that initially seem meaningless. This is one of the great paradoxes of existence. The space that feels most empty may be the space carrying the greatest potential. But to discover that potential, something difficult is required. Patience. Patience is not passive. Patience is trust. Trust that not every unanswered question needs an immediate answer. Trust that not every period of confusion requires intervention. Trust that not every feeling of emptiness is a problem solved. Modern culture struggles with this idea. We are trained to optimize everything, fix everything, improve everything, measure everything. The moment discomfort appears, we reach for solutions. But some experiences cannot be solved. They must be lived. The void cannot always be eliminated. Sometimes it must be entered. This is why so many ancient traditions speak of darkness before illumination. Not because darkness is superior to light, but because darkness strips away illusion. Darkness removes distractions. Darkness forces confrontation. When everything familiar disappears, only what is real remains. And this realization changes the entire relationship with emptiness. Instead of asking, "How do I escape this?" a different question emerges. What is this experience asking of me? Notice the difference. One question comes from fear. The other comes from curiosity. Fear wants immediate relief. Curiosity wants understanding. Fear closes. Curiosity opens. And perhaps this is where healing truly begins. Not when emptiness disappears, but when your relationship to it changes. Because the moment you stop treating emptiness as an enemy, you become available to its wisdom. You begin listening rather than resisting, observing rather than fighting, learning rather than escaping. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the void reveals something extraordinary. It was never trying to destroy you. It was trying to transform you. The silence was not punishment. It was preparation. The uncertainty was not failure. It was initiation. The emptiness was not evidence that life had abandoned you. It was evidence that an old version of you could no longer continue. And that realization leads us to the most important question of all. If emptiness is a doorway, how do you walk through it? How do you stop fighting the process and begin cooperating with it? How do you move from fragmentation to wholeness? The answer is not found in a miracle, not in a shortcut, not in another promise. It is found in a series of simple but profound shifts. 7 steps, 7 movements inward, 7 invitations to stop running from yourself and finally come home. And that is where we go next. By now, you may have noticed something. The emptiness was never the real problem. The real problem was the relationship you developed with it, the resistance, the avoidance, the endless attempt to escape what needed to be understood. And if that is true, then the path forward is not about becoming someone new. It is about returning to what has always been there, not adding, remembering, not achieving, recognizing. These 7 steps are not techniques. They are shifts in perspective, ways of relating differently to yourself, your pain, and your life. And while they may appear simple, do not underestimate them. The deepest truths are often the simplest. Step 1. Stop trying to be spiritual. Start being human. Many people enter spirituality hoping to become more than human, more peaceful, more conscious, more evolved. But somewhere along the way, they begin treating their humanity like a problem. Their anger becomes a flaw. Their sadness becomes a weakness. Their fear becomes evidence of failure. So they attempt to rise above these experiences, to transcend them, to eliminate them. But life does not ask you to become less human. It asks you to become more fully human. Your emotions are not obstacles. They are information. Your vulnerability is not weakness. It is honesty. Your imperfections are not mistakes. They are part of the design. The person who is constantly trying to appear spiritual often becomes disconnected from reality because reality is messy. Reality cries. Reality doubts. Reality struggles. Reality falls apart. And reality heals, not by escaping humanity, but by embracing it. The next time irritation appears, notice what happens. Observe how quickly the mind tries to explain it away. Observe how quickly you try to become enlightened about it. Instead, pause and simply admit the truth. I am irritated. Nothing more. No spiritual interpretation. No philosophy. No reframing. Just honesty. Because truth is where healing begins, not performance. Truth. Step 2. Face your shadow. Don't hide from it. Most people spend their lives trying to become good. Very few spend their lives trying to become whole. Wholeness requires something uncomfortable. The willingness to meet the parts of yourself you've rejected, the parts you've hidden, the parts you've judged, the parts you lock away because they did not fit your image of who you wanted to be. Every human being has a shadow, not because we are flawed, because we are human. The shadow contains everything you've learned not to show. Your anger, your jealousy, your selfishness, your fear, your insecurity, your hunger for power, your desire for approval. And the more you reject these aspects, the stronger they become. Because rejection does not create transformation. It creates division. Imagine trying to carry a backpack filled with stones. Now imagine pretending the backpack doesn't exist. The weight remains. Only now you cannot understand why you're tired. This is what happens when the shadow is ignored. The burden remains unconscious. The energy remains trapped. The life remains divided. A simple exercise can reveal this. Think of someone who deeply irritates you, someone whose behavior triggers judgment. Now ask yourself a difficult question. What quality in them am I refusing to see in myself? The answer may surprise you, because what we condemn most intensely often points towards something unresolved within us. Not always identical, but connected. And once you begin exploring these hidden dimensions honestly, the shadow loses its power, not because it disappears, because it becomes conscious. And what becomes conscious can be integrated. Step 3. Feel the emptiness. Don't fix it. This may be the most difficult step of all, because everything in modern life trains us to eliminate discomfort immediately. We distract ourselves, consume, scroll, analyze, escape. The moment an uncomfortable feeling appears, we move away from it, especially emptiness, because emptiness feels dangerous. It feels endless. It feels like a void capable of swallowing us whole. But what if that fear is an illusion? What if the emptiness only appears terrifying because you've never stayed with it long enough to understand it? Most people have never actually felt their emptiness. They've only reacted to it. The difference is enormous. Feeling requires presence. Reaction requires avoidance. The next time the hollow feeling appears, try something different. Do nothing for 5 minutes. Sit quietly. No phone, no music, no meditation technique, no affirmation. Simply remain present. Allow the sensation to exist. Notice where it lives in the body. Notice its texture, its movement, its energy. Become curious, not analytical. Curious. You may discover that beneath the emptiness lies grief, or fear, or loneliness, or longing, or perhaps something even deeper. You may discover that the emptiness is carrying a message, one it has been trying to deliver for years. Step 4. Ask yourself one question. What am I avoiding? Every persistent struggle hides an avoided truth. Every recurring pattern protects an unexamined wound. Every form of compulsive striving serves a psychological function. This means the emptiness itself may not be the issue. The issue may be what the emptiness is pointing toward. Ask yourself honestly, what am I avoiding? A conversation? A decision? A feeling? A truth? A loss? A memory? An aspect of myself? Most people immediately know the answer. They simply don't want to hear it, because truth often arrives before readiness. And yet the answer remains. Waiting. A useful exercise is to complete the following sentence without thinking too much. If I stopped distracting myself completely, I would have to face. Then write whatever emerges. Do not edit it. Do not judge it. Do not explain it. Simply let it exist. Sometimes the most important truth is the one you've spent years trying not to see. Step 5. Integrate the darkness. Don't reject it. There is a profound difference between acting on an impulse and acknowledging its existence. Many people confuse the two. To integrate darkness does not mean becoming destructive. It means becoming honest. It means recognizing that every human being contains contradictions, strength and weakness, love and resentment, compassion and selfishness, courage and fear. The goal is not purity. The goal is wholeness. Purity often creates masks. Wholeness creates authenticity. Consider anger. When integrated, anger becomes healthy boundaries. Consider fear. When integrated, fear becomes wisdom. Consider vulnerability. When integrated, vulnerability becomes connection. The energy trapped inside your shadow does not disappear. It transforms, but only after it is acknowledged. The parts of yourself you fear most may contain exactly the strength you need next. Step 6. Flow. Don't strive. For years, you may have believed that progress comes through effort, and sometimes it does. But there's another dimension of growth, a quieter dimension, one that emerges when effort relaxes, when striving stops, when control softens. Imagine standing in a river. The harder you fight the current, the more exhausted you become. The more exhausted you become, the less clearly you can see. Flow is not passivity. Flow is cooperation. Cooperation with reality. Cooperation with timing. Cooperation with life. There's tremendous wisdom in learning when to act, and equally tremendous wisdom in learning when to stop forcing. Many seekers spend years chasing awakening, as if awakening were hiding somewhere in the future. But life exists only here, only now, only in this breath, only in this moment. Try something simple. Choose one ordinary activity today. Walking, washing dishes, making coffee. Do it without trying to improve yourself. Do it without turning it into a spiritual exercise. Do it simply because you are alive. Notice how different that feels. Notice how much energy returns when you stop trying to become. Step 7. Understand that emptiness is a portal, not the enemy. Everything leads here. Every lesson, every struggle, every realization. The deepest shift occurs when you stop seeing emptiness as a threat. Because what if emptiness is not absence? What if emptiness is space? Space for truth, space for growth, space for transformation, space for a new identity to emerge. Every birth requires space. Every creation requires space. Every renewal requires space. And emptiness is that space. The void is not asking you to fear it. It is asking you to enter it consciously. The next time the hollow feeling appears, resist the urge to solve it. Instead, ask, what are you here to teach me? Then listen, not for an immediate answer, not for a mystical experience. Just listen, because sometimes the deepest wisdom arrives quietly, without drama, without revelation, without fireworks. And when it does, you may discover something extraordinary. The emptiness was never standing between you and your life. It was standing between you and the illusion you had mistaken for your life. And once that illusion begins to dissolve, the doorway opens. There's a moment that arrives on every authentic path, a moment when the search begins to feel different. Not because all the questions have been answered, not because all the wounds have been healed, not because life has suddenly become easy, but because something fundamental shifts. You stop running. For years, perhaps decades, your life may have been organized around a single assumption, the assumption that something was missing, something essential, something necessary, something that stood between you and peace, between you and fulfillment, between you and yourself. And because of that assumption, you searched. You searched through books, through teachers, through philosophies, through techniques, through relationships, through achievements, through identities, always moving towards some imagined future where everything would finally make sense, where the emptiness would disappear, where the struggle would end, where you would arrive. But what if there was never a destination? What if the search itself was built on a misunderstanding? Not because growth is meaningless, not because healing is unnecessary, but because wholeness was never waiting for you at the end of the journey. Wholeness was waiting beneath it, hidden beneath the striving, hidden beneath the performance, hidden beneath the endless effort to become someone else. Think about how much energy is required to maintain an image, the image of being strong, the image of being spiritual, the image of being healed, the image of being in control, the image of being okay. Many people spend their entire lives protecting these identities, and in doing so, they slowly lose contact with what is real, not intentionally, not consciously, but gradually, until one day they wake up and realize they no longer know who they are beneath the performance. This realization can feel terrifying because identities provide certainty. Even painful identities provide certainty. The identity of the wounded person, the identity of the seeker, the identity of the healer, the identity of the spiritual one. Each identity offers a sense of self, a familiar story, a place to stand. But life is larger than any story, and eventually, every identity becomes too small. Every label becomes too narrow. Every image becomes too restrictive, which means growth requires loss. Not just the loss of pain, the loss of certainty, the loss of false definitions, the loss of who you thought you had to be. This is why real transformation often feels like death before it feels like freedom, because something is dying, not your essence, not your worth, not your humanity, only the illusion, only the mask, only the structure that can no longer contain who you are becoming. And when that structure begins to dissolve, emptiness appears, not as punishment, not as failure, as space. The space left behind when illusion leaves. The space where truth can finally enter. This is the deeper realization. The emptiness was never asking to be eliminated. It was asking to be understood. It was not an obstacle on the path. It was part of the path. It was not proof that something was wrong. It was evidence that something old was ending, and something new was trying to emerge. The tragedy is that most people never stay long enough to discover this. The moment emptiness appears, they escape. The moment uncertainty appears, they distract themselves. The moment silence arrives, they fill it with noise. And because of that, they never hear what the emptiness was trying to say. But you are hearing it now, perhaps not through these words, perhaps through something deeper, something inside you that already knows, something that is always known, the quiet part, the honest part, the part beneath the fear, the part beneath the performance, the part beneath the search, the part that has been waiting patiently for you to return. Because despite everything you've experienced, you have never truly been separated from yourself. You have only been distracted from yourself. And distraction is not the same as loss. The truth has remained exactly where it always was, beneath the noise, beneath the striving, beneath the endless effort to become, waiting, not demanding, not forcing, simply waiting for your attention, for your honesty, for your presence. And perhaps that is the greatest irony of all. The thing you have been searching for was never hiding from you. You were hiding from it, not intentionally, not maliciously, only because pain taught you to look elsewhere, Fear taught you to look elsewhere. Conditioning taught you to look elsewhere. The world taught you to look elsewhere. But truth does not live elsewhere. Truth lives here, in this moment, in this breath, in this life, exactly as it is. Not perfected, not finished, not complete, alive. And that is enough, more than enough. It always was. And the doorway has been open the entire time. Fade to black. So, let us return to where we began. You meditated. You prayed. You studied. You searched. You did everything you thought would finally fill the emptiness. And still the emptiness remained. Now, perhaps you understand why. Because the emptiness was never a hole to fill. It was a doorway to enter. A doorway hidden behind three powerful traps. The trap of spiritual bypass, where spirituality becomes an escape from reality. The trap of striving, where growth becomes another form of self-rejection. And the trap of shadow rejection, where parts of yourself are abandoned in the pursuit of perfection. And beyond those traps, 7 invitations, 7 movements toward wholeness. Stop trying to be spiritual. Start being human. Face your shadow. Feel the emptiness. Ask what you're avoiding. Integrate the darkness. Flow instead of striving. And finally, recognize the void for what it truly is. A portal, not an enemy. Remember Sarah. For years, she believed she needed another breakthrough, another method, another answer. But the transformation began the moment she stopped trying to become enlightened and started telling the truth about her grief, the truth about her anger, the truth about her longing, the truth about herself. And perhaps that is where your transformation begins too. Not with a new technique, not with another promise, not with another search, but with honesty. Simple, uncomfortable, liberating honesty. Because honesty reunites what avoidance divides. Honesty restores what fear abandons. Honesty brings you back to yourself. And when you return to yourself, the emptiness changes. The silence changes. The journey changes. Everything changes. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel. Not because you need more content. Not because you need another teacher. But because there are conversations that matter. Conversations about truth. Conversations about consciousness. Conversations about what it means to be fully human. And if you're walking this path, you don't have to walk it alone. One final thought before you go. The kingdom within is not found by escaping your darkness. It is found by entering it consciously, by walking into the places you've spent years avoiding, by meeting the parts of yourself you spent years rejecting, and discovering that what you feared was never your enemy. It was your unfinished self, waiting patiently to come home. So the next time the emptiness returns, and it will, don't ask, how do I get rid of this? Ask, what are you trying to show me? Then be still. Listen. Wait. Because beyond the silence, beyond the discomfort, beyond the uncertainty, a truth is waiting. And it has been waiting for you all along. The emptiness was never the problem. The resistance was.